Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back to another episode of Declan's Autism Journey podcast. I'm really excited you're here. Today, I wanted to talk about what Declan's day-to-day looks like. He is 5 years old, and every day I throw a lot at him. Every day I ask him to work incredibly hard, and he does it. And so when I say he is my little superhero, I truly mean that. He blows me away with his tenacity, with his, he just never gives up. He just does it. And that's always kind of how Tim and I have looked at him. I mean, we have said hundreds of times probably, wow, he's just doing it. Look at all we throw at him, and he just is doing it. He is rising to the occasion. And I literally see him do this every day with all the things that we ask him to do. So every day he usually gets up around 7 and he eats a little breakfast. Sometimes he tries to watch a little TV. We really try to curb any electronics for him. That really engages the left side of his brain. And so we want to make sure that the majority of the activities we do with him are engaging his right side, to his weak side, to really try to bring that online. So, he comes in my office and we start our therapy. It's typically an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half after school. That is a lot to ask of a little guy, but we do, and he does it. And so typically we start out and we, begin working his primitive reflexes and exercising those. We work on his sense of smell. We work on his spinning. And then we go on to this vibrating plate where he stands for literally 45 minutes to 50 minutes every day, twice a day, while he has on 2 sets of transcranial pads, one in the front, one in the back. He has a TENS unit on his back. He has glasses that light up the left side of both of his eyes. He's listening to music, but only in the left ear. And then I take a laser, and it has the Malillo method protocols built into it, and I laser 9 sections of his brain, starting on the left side and going to the right, for 5 minutes a section. And all the while, he's just standing on this vibrating plate, and he's working on his balance, and he's just doing it, and it really boggles my mind. We wrap up our first session of the day, and then we head out the door and he goes to school. And school has been incredibly accommodating based on the medical necessity of Declan needing this therapy, that he goes in late every day. So he arrives at school anywhere between 8:45 and 9:30, depending on when we wrap up his therapy. Is in school all day with his peers, socializing, working on, everything, crafts, just being near other children, playing with toys appropriately. He's immersed in the school setting, and that is a beautiful thing for him. That is really what he needs. And that also engages his right brain. And then he comes home around 2:15, 2:30, and we either go right into another therapy session of same repeat of what we did that morning, or, depending on my work schedule, we may do it later that evening. But our goal is always to get in 2 sessions a day, which does equate for almost 3 hours. On top of that, on Wednesdays, he has music therapy. On top of that, he's 5 and he wants to play outside. He wants to be on the swing set, or he wants to be jumping in his trampoline. So he goes all day. And I am so grateful that one of the changes that we have seen is an improvement in his sleep. For a while, I would say probably a year to 2 years, maybe longer, there would be nights where he would be up all night and he wouldn't need me. He'd be in his room. I'd have the monitor on him. But no matter what time of night I rolled over and turned that monitor on to see what he was doing, he was up. There were many vacations we took where he literally did not sleep all night. And those are really hard times. Lack of sleep is a telltale sign. Many families of folks with autism, kiddos with autism, talk about this lack of sleep and how challenging that really is. And we know that challenge very well ourselves. We are grateful that Declan has progressed and come a long way when it comes to sleep. Now, it does not mean he's resting peacefully at all times or doesn't have hard nights. He certainly does, but they are few and far between compared to what they were. For many times his body was never at peace. Like, he just was always constantly moving. And it really was born out of this lack of control of his body, which we didn't know at the time, but we certainly now know after partnering with Dr. Melillo. And so much of that makes sense. Other changes that we see in Declan that really continue to give us the hope and we marvel at. I mean, truly, we marvel at things we're seeing in him. His receptive language prior to Dr. Melillo was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. He was probably at a 1, maybe a 2. And I'd say now he's closer to a 7, maybe even an 8 on certain days. If I ask him things, I know he understands. He shows me that he understands by his response. Prior to treatment with the Melillo method, that really wasn't the case. If he was in his routine, you knew that he knew what he was doing. But if he was out of his routine and you asked him to hand you a water bottle or something like that, there was nothing coming back from him. And now there is. He will hand you the water bottle. The other day he initiated pretending that he was going to kiss me, and then he pulled back and he laughed. And, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. And of course I just started crying because the things we are seeing with Declan are mind-blowing, but more importantly, what we have been praying for since we found out he was on the spectrum. And even probably before that. His sleep issues were happening well before being on the spectrum, before receiving the diagnosis. The receptive language, that was happening before we received his formal diagnosis. So, we've been living with these things for quite a while. And so to see these improvements is just wonderful. They're truly gifts from God, and we are grateful every day that our prayers are being answered. Another example is prior to treatment, if he was running down a hallway, he would just keep going. There was no acknowledgement that mommy was there, that he had to turn around, that he was potentially unsafe, that he was by near strangers. No acknowledgement to any of that. And now when we go to New York, oftentimes at night, I will let him run up and down the hallway, or we'll walk around the hotel. And every time I say stop, he stops immediately and he turns around. And I will either say, come on back, and he does, or I just don't even have to say it and he comes back. He recognizes that I am his person. I am his safe space. He will grab my hand to hold my hand. And for a long time, I would have to grab his hand, and there was no actual holding of it. It was, I was grasping him really, but there was nothing coming back from him. And, now he'll squeeze my hand. Not only will he squeeze my hand, but he will be the one, as we're in maybe an unfamiliar situation, he'll grab my hand. He knows I'm his person. And that is beyond beautiful. And it is a gift. These changes that we see continue to excite us. We know that the Melillo method is Declan's path to progress. We know he's on the right pathway. But that doesn't mean we stop looking for other complementary activities or treatments to add to his repertoire. So I said once a week he has music therapy. And if we could do it more, I would, because he responds so incredibly to music therapy. He loves the music. He loves when Riley sings. He reaches for the guitar. He can play the bells. All these things that, we are just not musically inclined people, my husband or I. And so it is so exciting to see him respond this way. And to have someone who is so gifted and so kind and so compassionate as Riley is. It is not easy sometimes to tell a mom that maybe she shouldn't be part of music therapy. Maybe Declan is doing better without you present. And, Riley always has Declan's best interest at heart, even if it means having to tell mom it's time to go. He's fine. And, she always keeps his best interest at heart. And that is truly a gift. And we've partnered with her and part of the organization that she is with for probably almost 2 years and maybe even longer. And we are grateful for every music therapy session because he vocalizes, he's engaged, he could be tired and fussy. Riley comes and it might take him 5 minutes or so to kind of acclimate to realizing it's music therapy and he's about to have a lot of fun. And then he comes right around and he works so hard every session. We are also decided, something I recently found is umbilical cord blood and tissue transfusion. Many people and families have gone out of the country for this because it is not approved by the FDA in the United States. I did find a provider in Jacksonville, Florida, who has an adult child on the spectrum, and he and his wife took their child for this, and have seen some really incredible benefits from it. More engagement, more eye contact, more words, just overall benefits. And so Tim and I, again, it's a leap of faith. And we thought, we ran it by Dr. Malillo and he thought, yeah, I'll support whatever you want to do. This, it's different, but go for it. If you want to do it, go for it. The most important thing is that it won't hurt Declan. And so, our feeling is if there's anything that we can do, even if it's considered experimental, as long as it will not hurt Declan and we have the time and the money and we're not afraid to give some hope to this, to carve out some hope for it, then we are going to do it. And so in April, we're going to go to Jacksonville, Florida, and we're going to have umbilical cord blood and tissue transfusion for Declan. There's light sedation involved. He will not even really know it's happening. And I will be with him the entire time. So as Tim and I talked about it, we started this year not even knowing that this was out there as a treatment for autism, even though ironically we did save our children's cord blood and tissue. But because it's not FDA approved, we are using a donor sample. But we started this year not even knowing that this was an option. And now here we are adding it to Declan's plate. And, again, it goes back to that feeling of, okay, just pivot. We pivot when the time is right. For us, the central focus is the Malillo method and the 3 hours we put in every day to that. And then we're always trying to add other modalities that potentially will help him. So more to come on that. Certainly, I'm going to chronicle Declan's journey with umbilical cord blood and tissue stem cell therapy through this podcast. There has been one study done in the United States by Duke University in 2019, and that is literally the only one, the only study. And not only is it the only study, but they only did one course of treatment, so one IV infusion. There are, I guess, off-brand studies, I'll call them, really not studies, but that show that the benefits of getting multiple transfusions yields the best benefit. However, that is incredibly expensive. And there's really, again, no scientific proof to back that up. Why that's the case, I don't know. And it is so maddening as a mom to think that this is potentially out there, and yet, the studies just aren't being done. So frustrating. And again, another reason for this podcast. So, I'm going to chronicle Declan's journey, and that encompasses everything that we're doing for him, including this transfusion. And so, again, if he can be a catalyst for others and to help others go down this path, and it helps him, knowing it won't hurt him, we absolutely have to do it. But again, goes back to that leap of faith, which we are willing to take. But this decision is based so much less on fear and so much more on hope. Even though it's a hard word for me, it's true. This decision, as Tim and I talked about it, our hearts, our guts, our minds, everything was saying, why not? We have traveled all over for him. We have done so much. This is a one-time IV infusion. It was a no-brainer. Let's do it. And, we try to be cautiously optimistic. I try not to go all in, but that is just really hard for me. So if it doesn't work, will I be disappointed? I already know it. Of course I will be. But I have no reason not to have hope. I have no reason not to think it's not going to work. And again, work is such a subjective, what does that mean? It means something different to everybody. Any incremental progress for us or for Declan is a huge win. And so, when we break it down like that, we just want to see progress. It doesn't matter if it's him eating with a utensil. It doesn't matter if it's him sleeping better through the night, becoming potty trained at nighttime. All of those things are huge wins. Even though they might be small and incremental in the grand scheme of things, they really add up to huge successes for Declan. And so we really look forward to our time in New York with Dr. Melillo is coming up in March. And then in April, we will go to Jacksonville for this umbilical cord blood and tissue transfusion, which we are really excited about. But I really look forward to talking more about that as we go through it. The post 3 to 6 months or 3 to 6 months post transfusion is the time when you potentially really start to see some progress. And again, I really am excited to chronicle that here. And if no one else is going to do a study, researchers aren't going to do a study, this mom is going to do it. And I really hope that, those efforts and Declan's path helps others as they are figuring out their own path. But so much to say about this, and I'm really excited to keep this conversation going. Thanks for joining me today on this podcast, and I look forward to keeping the conversation going next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.